the Bay Area via New York comes visionary, thought-provoking MC and producer Unlearn the World. Fresh off the release of his new album, Midnight Crysis, Unlearn the World continues to push the boundaries of hip-hop. Powerful lyricism, social commentary, and a fearless commitment to truth. In addition to his new album, he has a deep catalog that includes projects such as The God That Sins, Crowns, The Wake Up Call, and many more, showcasing his depth as an artist and thought leader. In addition to his catalog, he's worked with standout artists such as Sky Zoo, Benny the Butcher, Locksmith, Lil MC, Royce the 5'9", Papoose, Gorilla Nems, and many more. Tune in to learn about his journey in music, the making of his new album, Midnight Crysis, and what he's got coming next on the Cristopolis Show number 260. And I'm here with an incredible artist, Unlearn the World, representing the Bay via New York. He just dropped a new album called Midnight Crysis. My bro, thank you so much for being on the Cristopolis Show. Let's talk about the new album.
I appreciate you for having me, man. Thank you so much. New album is called Midnight Crisis, like you said, and I'm super excited to talk to you about it and to share with the people. And it's one of my more exciting. It's one of the projects I'm most excited about in my career.
I can honestly tell you, you are in album of the year running with this project. It's
Right
early.
on,
Hey,
bro.
listen, it's early in
Right on, bro.
2026, but I'm sure people have told you because it's a masterpiece. I
I
mean,
appreciate
it
that.
is
No,
a
that's
banger.
big level of praise. I'm humbled by that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I went in trying to be as intentional as possible with every single track and putting it all together, and that's part of my creative process. Aside from writing the songs, I love curating the arrangement of the records, the sequencing, the aesthetic, getting the different artists together, getting the features, getting so that entire process and plus the rollout is all part of my creativity, right? Which is why
Yeah.
I consider myself a hip hop artist beyond just being an MC, because all that
Yes.
artistry revolves around the culture in and of itself.
Yes. The title, Midnight Crisis, and then you spelled crisis, different from the traditional spelling of crisis.
Yeah.
What does the title mean? What does it mean in this album?
I mean, it's various things. I think one, I'm an older artist. You know what I'm saying? I'm in my 40s, and I'm proud of it. I've gone and I've grown up and been groomed in every significant era of hip hop. Right, starting from the golden era where I first started learning how to rap from artists like Nas and Biggie and Tupac and so on, and then going into the Raucous Records era, the Rough Rider era, battle rapping, blogging, mixtapes, like all those eras where I was involved in one of those in all those eras in one way or another.
Yes.
Um, so being an elder statesman within the culture who came up in the culture, you want to reflect. I'm in a very reflective state of my life right now. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I'm changing things about myself. I'm changing things about the way I move and the way I approach and the way I look at things. So all of that is remixing the self, right? Other people would call it a midlife crisis, where for
Yeah.
me, I look at it as I'm in my midlife, and the crises that I'm trying to address are the global crises, the worldly crises. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's racism on one end, fascism on another end, or potential for World War III abroad, these are things that have a significant impact and an adverse effect on all of us,
Yeah.
not just politically and socially in terms of how we can move and where we can move, but on our psyche, on our
Yeah.
mindset. And that's where the crisis is lying. You know what I'm saying? And I put crisis CRY because for me, part of the crisis, part of exploring yourself is healing yourself. And
Yeah.
healing yourself involves crying a lot. The
Yeah.
tears and what gets you emotionally charged enough to cry is by one way or another a technology that allows you to really see yourself in a new light, but more particularly to shed the pain you've been feeling, to shed the anxiety you've been holding on to shed the angst and the anger and all of that. Sometimes we just need to purge that from our bodies. We need to get it out of our nervous system.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think we take for granted of terms like, yo, get it out of your system. It's
Yeah.
a real physical and emotional thing to get something out of your system. So I think with this album, Midnight Crisis, I was getting a lot of things out of my nervous system so I can reset myself for this new phase of life that I'm in.
Wow. So many gems, bro. That's so powerful. You said a thing that I found really interesting, which is crying is a form of technology, right?
Yeah,
And I think that that's a thing that like men especially, and a lot of people who listen to hip hop are men, right?
yeah.
That we're kind of told not to cry. We're not allowed to cry, right? Like you're grown up, you got to kind of like, tough it out and be tough. But there is like such a good feeling after a good cry. You know what I'm saying? And like I got my wife and my daughters and they're like, Daddy never cries, and I was like, I can't. But when I do, whenever it does happen, ain't nothing like a good cry. So that's really, really powerful. The title of the album, Midnight Crisis. It's dope.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right. We've been having a lot of conversations just in pop culture about the crises that men are confronting. There's loneliness crises,
Yeah.
there's obesity crises, there's mental health crises. There's all these different things that are afflicting men, right?
Yeah.
And I think all too often, and part of that conversation is that men are not welcomed or invited or empowered to feel vulnerable and to communicate vulnerabilities for fear of being seen as weak, for fear as being seen as effeminate or too in touch with your emotions or hypersensitive. I mean, I can go through
Yeah.
various instances in my life where I've conveyed a vulnerability and been told that I'm either being too sensitive or, I should get over it, right? Where men's feelings in one way or another aren't necessarily validated. And I don't want to make this like this super like men need to cry kind of thing, but I do think that there needs to be a space, especially with men of color, that we
Yeah.
can welcome and empower them to feel all the range of human emotion, right?
That's
For
powerful.
us to be empowered to have a full scope and a full range of our own humanity, as opposed to just having the default emotion, which is anger. And the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is that anger is a secondary emotion, right?
Yeah.
It's the default that we go to when we can't express sadness, when we can't express fear. We go to
Yeah.
anger. And we go to anger to protect our identity and protect our ego. So, for me, my musical approach is just to like put my life out there, right?
Yeah.
To process what it is that I'm feeling and I'm thinking. And if I have to have a good cry in the process of writing a song or in the booth or even just thinking about the subject matter, I think that that's healing. There's a catharsis in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could be a happy
Absolutely.
cry too. It don't always need to be
Yeah,
gloom and
yeah,
doom.
yeah.
You know
Tears
what
of
I'm
joy
saying?
for real.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't
Or
need to be
nostalgia.
yeah, and it doesn't need to be hypersensitive like you're just watching like puppies on TV and then all of a sudden you just start bursting into tears. It's like
Yeah.
these are when I talk about crying, I'm talking about deep moments of reflection, deep moments of sorrow, deep moments of redemption, whether you're talking to your creator or talking to your child. You know what I'm saying? Like there's
Wow.
all these different places where men can express that vulnerability, have that moment to themselves, and then be able to move forward and progress in the world as a full human.
Wow. Powerful, powerful. Thank you so much. It's a very full album, not only emotionally in the depth of the lyrics and how dope the production is, but
Yeah.
it's 17 tracks. And we're living in
Yeah.
an era where people are dropping like a lot of EPs, right?
Hmm.
5 songs, 7 songs. Nothing wrong with that. We live in a culture where they're consuming fast, especially with DSPs, right? So you can just get it out everywhere.
Totally.
That is a trend that is out there, especially within hip hop. This is a big boy album.
Yes,
17 songs is a big album, even in the era of full length albums.
for sure.
And every song is dope. No skips. Talk to us about the making of the album.
Yeah.
How you've taken your time with it, and the creation of how you decided that we're gonna keep going. We're gonna add another. And now it's complete. Talk to us about the whole process of that.
Certainly. Yeah. No, I've always considered myself an album-based artist first and foremost, right? When
Wow.
I'm curating art, and that's how I always see it. This is not just a record. I'm not dropping a single. I don't play music industry games. I'm in hip hop and I'm in hip hop culture, right? By
Yeah.
extension, I'm in the music industry. but I'm a cultural representative and I'm a cultural practitioner. And part of that is artistry. I grew up in the era where you had classic albums and you listened to them like you would watch a film, and you would go through this range of emotion. One minute you're angry, the next minute you're sad, the next minute you're talking about a girl, the next minute you're, you know what I'm saying? Like there's all these different places you can go on an album to give the full breadth of what you're experiencing in the moment. And I always wanted to share that with people, right? And I don't think an EP can do that justice. I don't
Yeah.
think putting out a song every 2 months will give you or anybody as a listener a full understanding of who I am, right? More particularly, now you're dealing with the body of work, right? And within that body of work, after the album release, I have a whole catalog that I can now make content from, right? I can shoot new videos for it. I can pace myself in terms of the attention that I want to bring to the project. And now people can hear a whole, a whole new capsule or installment of my creativity. So say
Wow.
they listen to one song, say, one of my videos, Beg Your Pardon, or Civil War, Fist of the North Star, whatever song you listen to, that may be your entry point. But now you want to listen to more. Do I want my fans who are now listening to my new stuff to go to the album 2 years ago? No, I would want them to go and enjoy a brand new body of work, binge that. And if you're still committed to me, now you have a whole catalog you can go back to. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Yeah.
that my albums of recent, my last two albums, The God That Sins that dropped in 2024, I dropped a deluxe that had extra music on it
Yep.
on Bandcamp presently, and then I dropped this album. So there's a whole lot of music,
Yeah.
and I got these amazing features from all these artists, so you can hear me in every light. You know what I'm saying? But
Yep.
what I'm betting on by dropping albums is that the fans who've never heard me before are going to have an opportunity to listen to my entire catalog, and
Yeah.
the fans who know me, love me, and appreciate me will be able to then enjoy a new capsule of music, not just
Yeah.
one singular song, and then they have to wait 3 more months. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's super, super powerful. The album before this, The God That Sins, right? Right in the name of the album, the God That Sins, there's a theme in a lot of your work where um there you talk about the big questions, like right in the names of the album, like,
Yeah,
why are we here? God, purpose of life, destiny, spirituality, it's always hinted at,
yeah,
somehow you're always, and also symbology, right? In a positive way. There's crowns and there's your name, right?
right.
Unlearn, right? Unlearn the world. We've and these are my words, right? But that we are programmed to a certain extent. We come in, and then as you get older and you start to learn, you learn that you got to unlearn, and your
For sure.
name, your whole embodiment is philosophical, intellectual, and spiritual. Can you talk to us right now, where you're currently at the Midnight Crisis in this spiritual journey in your life, as an elder statesman in hip hop, but one that has brought consciousness, that has never shied away from social commentary, and your reality here on earth, who you are, right?
Yeah,
As a black man, a Dominican man, a man who grew up on the East Coast but is now on the West Coast. So
yeah.
many dope one-liners, such a special life. So
Mhm.
so many layers to your personhood. But where are you at right now in your spirituality, in your worldview?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and it's a loaded question. You know what I'm saying? We could probably have a whole episode about just where I'm at in my life right now, but I'll try to keep it succinct, right? Like, I've been telling people of recent that I'm in the now what phase of my life, in that
Yeah,
that's kind of part of the midlife existential crisis, is trying to understand who are you now in terms of your character and in terms of your persona now that you've unlocked a lot of the things that you've worked your whole life to obtain, right?
yeah,
When I was young in the streets of New York City from Washington Heights, I told myself as a teenager, you're going to be either a career academic, you're going to be a rap star, or you're going to be an Islamic scholar. Those are your three avenues. Fast forward 30 some odd years later, I'm proud to say that I kind of dabble in all of these different things. I'm definitely a
yeah,
rap artist, not a rap star, but that's fine with me as long as I'm an active practicing rap artist who
Yo,
I can do shows and
with this album of the year, I think that you know what I'm saying. A lot of
yeah,
people, you're gonna be at least in this thing of ours, right? Because there's
yeah,
a whole other there's rap music and there's hip hop, and in
for
hip
sure.
hop, people know Unlearn, and you are definitely a heavy hitter. You've worked with the greatest, so you have cosigns from the peers, and this
Yeah.
album is phenomenal.
Thank you for that. But
Yeah.
that's, you know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm saying. It's like having achieved or unlocked a lot of the things that I've set my whole life to do. You now have to dream bigger. You now have to expand. And I've done a lot of healing. I've gone, I'm a mental health advocate, so I've been in therapy consistently over the last 5, 6 years. I kind of reintroduced myself to my spirituality. I mean, I've always been an advocate of meditation since I was young. I was meditating when I was 14 in Washington
Wow.
Heights on the roof of my building, just trying to
That's
quiet
dope.
the noise in my head, right? Just trying to find some peace of mind in a world that was very chaotic and a world to some degree, especially for a young black man trying to find himself, dangerous. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I had friends and brothers and relatives who were in the streets and they were
Yeah.
active. I had parents and OGs that were in the streets. That's easy trajectory for me. But for me to just kind of receive and withdraw from that world and say I want to explore what's going on internally, that became like the catalyst for this path of self-discovery that I would continue on until present day. So here I am, I'm reintroducing myself to spirituality. um, you know, I'm studying Sufi Islam, which is the more esoteric and
Yeah.
existential interpretation of scripture and ritual and all of these different things. I'm understanding the metaphysics of it. I'm understanding the Arabic. Like I'm learning all of these things. So it's really, to not to exploit my namesake, but it is the unlearning and the
Yeah.
relearning of the self in my current phase of life. And what comes with that is new realizations, new approaches, new frequencies to be on, right? New exciting ways of changing your perspective and changing who you are and just watching the world around you change. Like I'm a
Dope.
believer of every individual having the capacity to change their own reality based on what they're thinking and what they're feeling, right?
Yeah.
And there's a saying in Islam that God doesn't change the condition of a people until they change what's within themselves.
That's
So
dope.
we as human beings are the catalyst and have the ability and the power to literally change our reality through words, feelings, and behavior.
Yes.
So if I want a different reality for myself, I know that I am the key for that. And I know that I have to start analyzing and examining my words, my behavior, and my feelings about how I
Yeah.
feel about me, the world around me. And I've been doing that. I've been doing that over the last, several years. And I've been watching amazing things happen in my life that I just have to
Wow.
like testify, like, yo, this is real, right? Whatever you think about religion, whatever you think about spiritual practices, whatever your lane is, this is a real science that should be applied as opposed to a religion that needs to be followed. I think that there's a
Wow.
big distinction. So for me, spirituality, regardless of its ilk or what you define it as, whether it's Islam, Christianity, whatever, matters none. Spirituality is a science that human beings should be able to apply as opposed to a dogmatic religion that can be followed. People who
Right.
want to just kind of give up their control follow a religion.
Yeah.
People who want to take control of their lives follow a spiritual practice that allows them to do that. And that's where I'm at in my life. And I think that chronicling that in my music is the hope is that it empowers other people of my age, maybe younger, maybe older, to look at what's going on with themselves and say, okay, well,
Yeah.
how do I become the best version of me? What do I need to do? What hard conversations do I need to have with myself or my family to reverse the polarity of where my life is going if I don't like it? You know what I mean? So at
Yeah.
very least, if I'm not giving people a blueprint with my music, I'm at least chronicling my experience. And that's what I intend to do.
That's so dope, bro. So many gems there. It's funny because when I was listening to the album, I listened to it, multiple times, and you just said a key word that stood out, and it's the blueprint. Because this
Yeah.
album to me is reminiscent to Jay-Z's Blueprint
Ah,
because
wow,
it
that's a
starts
compliment,
off with
man.
so
That's
many
really,
bangers.
Yeah,
Yeah, and because you know the structuring of the album itself, right? You've got like so many like you got the lead single, like you've got basically like two lead singles back to back, right? You got the lead single and then like song number it's like
yeah,
sing
yeah,
it's like all of the super lyrical bar work, boom bap, really incredible production. But as you get deeper into the album, it's reminiscent of things like Song Cry, right? Where
yeah,
like you're actually like letting people with bossa nova, different songs from that album,
for
really getting
sure.
into, not the hard hitting lyrical wordplay, but like I'm gonna show you what else I could do with my pen, and
Yeah,
I wanted to sprinkle that in there as you talked about a blueprint for life in relation to like your journey in spirituality, but also this album, since we're talking about the album Midnight Crisis, is reminiscent to me of that album specifically in how many songs, how it's a bigger song and how it's kind of structured, right? Where it
huh.
takes you like and then as you get deeper into the album, it's like, oh, he's like really like sharing emotions, right? Very
Yeah,
powerful.
and that's kind of always been a niche I've always wanted to explore. When I was younger, just literally learning how to develop songs, my older brother who didn't rap, he was like a mentor to me. And he would say, "This is your niche. You speaking about emotional content and what you're dealing with as and I'm a teenager at the time when he's telling me this. He goes, "That's going to be your niche." Because no, at the time, nobody was doing that. I'm listening to Wu Tang. I'm listening to Nas. You
Right.
don't get that introspection maybe for another 6, 7 years. People,
That's true.
predecessors like Joe Budden. Joe Budden, when he was a rapper, was super talking about emotions, depression, mental health, all these different things. And then it kind of freed up as we got to the Kanye West era of hip hop, as we got to the Drake and the Kendrick Lamar and the J. Cole era of hip hop.
Yeah.
You started seeing people feel empowered to talk about their existential crisis and what they're dealing with personally and
Yeah.
emotionally. And you just take your cues from that. So for me, and I appreciate the compliment that it's reminiscent of the Blueprint, right? Because
Very much.
that's a staple album in hip hop. It's of the
Bro.
canon of classic albums. So thank you for that. But I'm always been a fan of Jay-Z. This is my first Roc Nation release, so I'm sure there's something in that my brain kind of like set on fire. Like, okay, well, there's a lot of Jay-Z references. I think on Civil World War III, we have scratches where it's literally him battling DMX. It's a
Yeah.
clip from that battle where he says, "Peace, I'm back to the block," like that. I think in the song "I Self Lord and Master,"
Yeah.
I have other scratches that are Jay Z's voice. But Rockefeller Records, early Kanye, early Just Blaze production was very influential for me.
Yeah.
Even when I would make my own beats and all of that. So my production choice was very, to be honest with you, my production choice was very Rock the Throne, Watch the Throne esque. Like I wanted that feel. So, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But then I wanted to give it some level of depth and substance that I think only I can offer. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be the next Jay-Z. I'm trying to be the first Unlearn. You know what I mean? So for
Yeah.
me, it was a matter of like, okay, I'm taking cues from some of my favorite artists and my favorite eras, as I always do in my music, and I'm giving you where I'm at presently. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was important for me. And coming into the album with so much intentionality, like I told myself, yo, I'm working on an album. I literally set the date, I set the studio time, I had the beats. I spent maybe 4 months writing the verses before I even
Wow.
got into the studio. And then when I was in the studio, it was really just get to work, working on songs, reworking songs. Sometimes I didn't have the verse written, so I'm freestyling in the booth and I'm working out a
Wow.
different process of creativity. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, it's not as dense because I'm not writing it. I'm literally freestyling it and seeing, I'm exploring my own kind of
Yeah, the energy's
creativity in
different.
that. So everything, all those different things in terms of the process is the art. The outcome
Wow.
is just a result of it, but the process in and of itself is the art, right? Finding the samples to get cleared. Like, oh, I want this old school sample from, It Takes Two to be in this section here. Like a lot
Right,
of the
right.
production, you know what I mean? A lot of the production was the beat makers that I employed or brought on to the project, and me with my producer brain, because I make beats also, saying,
Yo,
okay, I
your
want
beats
to
are
add to,
crazy.
yeah, I want to add these layers. I want to add these textures. I want to sing here. I want to do some melodic stuff here. I want to smooth it out here and then come back with some hardcore hip hop. Like these were all intentional choices. So for you to observe that and acknowledge that is a feather in the cap for me because it lets me know I did my job.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was it's a really it's a dope album, but the structure and the placement of the songs, right? As you mentioned when we were first talking, that's an art form. And it's on full
Absolutely.
display on this album, right? Because people put on, you always push like the first song, right? So it
Hmm.
takes you on that journey, those first 7, 8 tracks, where like, like it's really dope hip hop and really current, talking about current events, the
Yeah.
wordplay, everything's on point, the production's incredible. But as you get deeper in, it switches gears, and that's
Yep.
really special because it's 17 tracks, and it gives you a lot of different human emotion experiences as you get deeper into the album. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, no, it's important if you, especially if you have an album that long, right? You have 17 songs. You have to make every song. The challenge is to make every song have its own personality, have its own
That's
color, some
dope.
texture, attitude, right? So that it doesn't feel mundane. You're listening to an album in its entirety from beginning to end, hopefully. You know what I mean? And you're getting a sense of different aspects of my personality, but in terms of just the song, every song is a different experience. I would like to think that not one song sounds like another song on the album in terms of
Yeah.
BPM, in terms of drums, in terms of samples, in terms of all these, in terms of my delivery, right? Like there's all
Hmm.
these different things to consider that maybe the average fan doesn't even care about or pays attention to. But I know hip hop heads like yourself or
Yeah.
other people who have the attention span to explore an album are gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
you gotta meet people where they're at. So for me, it's like give them raw lyricism very first up in front. Give them some
Yeah.
cool things to say, some cool things to chant, make it anthemic, make it vibey, give them the wordplay that they're looking for. And now that they've bought into it, now you give them the human side of you. Now you give them reflection. Now you give them
Yeah.
emotion because you've already earned their trust. If they're already on track
Wow.
8 or 9, you've earned their trust for them. You know what I'm saying? There's so
Yeah,
much
it's
music that
powerful.
goes out. You know what I
And they
mean?
know
Like
you can
every
spit,
day.
right? They know you got bars now, right? Like
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
right? You got hands. They know you got hands. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, listen, what's he talking
Exactly.
about
Let me
now?
show you what else I can do. Now that you know I can rap at a high level, let me show
Yeah,
you other ranges of my creativity that you can
that's
get
dope.
with. And maybe you don't. Maybe you just like the raw lyricism that reminds you of Griselda or Wu Tang, right? But then
Right.
maybe there's a song that's a lot more introspective and smoother that you've never heard before. But because you like what I do here, you may be inclined to
Yeah,
listen here. And then for
that's
other
powerful.
people, maybe they're just driven and drawn towards the emotional songs.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe they don't like the rah rah lyrical miracle all day. Maybe
yeah.
they want to
That's
hear
right. Yeah,
songs like Bossa Nova and songs like Worth It and some of the other songs on the album that are a lot smoother and I'm a lot more melodic. I'm a lot more personal. You know what I mean? Where it's not just like
yeah,
I'm a rapper doing the rapper face and we're just gonna do like they we're all human. You know what I mean? And when we get off these cameras and we get off the Instagram, we're with our families. And you know what I'm saying? If
yeah,
I'm not unlearn the world in the streets, I'm Marlon at home. I'm dad at home.
yeah.
There's people who I can talk to who ground me. There's a practice and
Powerful.
there's rituals that ground me in my humanity. And I've always spent my career wanting to create an amplified version of myself as a rap persona, not somebody different, just an amplified what's the best version of me I can be. That's going to
Yeah,
be Unlearn the World. And the journey, the art is me in my body, in myself, working towards becoming that version.
that's dope.
That's what you're seeing or listening to when you hear me.
Yeah.
It's You're hearing me actively working towards fitting the role of the person I've told the world that I am. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So
I
it
do.
gets deep.
That's dope. The from more from like a music and business perspective, you mentioned that this is the first Roc Nation Distribution release. Can you talk to
Yep.
us about that? That's a big deal. You got the hat, you know what I'm saying? Talk to us about, how that came together, what it means to you personally and what it means for the future and other artists.
Yeah, I just think I've always been a culturally based artist, right? I've worked in the music industry. When I was a teenager, I was interning at Bad Boy and Loud Records, and I had a job at Warner Music Group, and I've pretty much met with almost every A&R you can think of, Universal, Atlantic, whoever else you
Wow.
can think of. And that lane hasn't always been for me. And you sacrifice exposure for the sake of holding on to your integrity. And I
Yeah.
think with Roc Nation, it was one of the first bigger or larger brands in the culture that comes from us. I
Yeah.
grew up with Jay-Z. I grew up
For
listening to
sure.
Jay-Z music. He you for all the criticism that you may see on the internet, he is a
Right.
cultural icon and represents almost the pinnacle of independence in
He
terms of
really
how
did
he
it.
moved,
They
in
really
terms
did
of his
it. They really came
strategy.
out of the projects. They really came with a paper bag to the radio station full of money and said, "Put it on, put us on the radio."
Exactly.
They
Like
really did these things.
my early managers were interns at Rockefeller. My older brother
Wow.
worked on Rockefeller's street team, right? And I've
Wow.
seen, and that was when they were like in a small little office downtown Manhattan. Like I've seen the evolution of what Jay-Z has become as an
Yeah.
artist, as a businessman, as a human being. And just to be in that ecosystem, I wanted to
Yeah.
see what it was to be in that ecosystem. So thankfully, I was part of that ecosystem, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna roll out an album, what's gonna make me different? This I don't want this to be, oh, he's a Roc Nation artist and whatever. It's like, no, yes, I'm putting out a project through Roc Nation Distribution. And it's different than others in that I was in the building, I can speak to people, I can get people on the phone, but more particularly, it's what I came to them in terms of the idea. And it wasn't
Yeah.
just me. It's like, yo, I'm gonna serve as the catalyst for this larger program, which is Hip Hop for Change, my
Yeah.
organization, where we go into schools, teach kindergarten through 12th grade the history of hip hop, all the expressive elements, and we get kids to use hip hop as a form of critical thinking and a way to affect social justice. So we also do artist development and personal development. So, what would it look like if me as an artist served as the catalyst for then the nonprofit to develop young artists in this new
Wow.
methodology that involves not only artist development, which is what the industry is saying it's lacking, but also personal growth and wellness and mental health, which is what Black and brown people are lacking. You understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a yes and it's this very comprehensive program. We have an online course where artists can who come from our programs can now learn how to brand themselves as an artist, learn how to be financially literate and develop a budget, learn how to build their creative team, their business team. They're going through all the rank and file things you need to learn as an artist. And then at the end of it, you create a project and now you're able to release it with one of the largest cultural outlets and platforms on the planet, right?
Yeah.
The people who do the Super Bowl is who you're putting out music with, and you're getting industry resources. I can call people up and set you up with a one-on-one with an A&R or the head of artist relations or whoever you need in your journey. I can give you not only mentorship from myself and the artists that are in our educator staff, but then you
Yeah.
have the A&Rs and the marketing specialists and whoever else is in the music industry that we have relationships with who can give these young people game. So it's a very unique, this entire initiative is extremely unique in that it's a
Yeah.
nonprofit hip hop based arts organization partnered with distribution from Roc Nation of all places to start really creating a pipeline, a workforce development pipeline into the music industry or into the culture so that we can start having more control.
Wow. Wow. See, I knew about Hip Hop for Change, but I hadn't seen or I didn't understand the connection now with Roc Nation Distribution. That is
Right.
incredibly powerful.
Yeah. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And like, I don't like to brag, but like,
You
we're
got
the only
brag a
ones
little
doing
bit,
what
bro.
we
Hey,
do.
hey, you gotta do the Jay-Z, you know what I'm
No,
saying?
because I'm super proud of it. You know what I'm saying? More so than like
Yeah,
I
no,
could
that's
sit here
incredible.
and tell you all day how proud I am of the albums I've dropped or the awards
Yeah.
I've won. But the proudest thing for me is like I've been able to put myself in a position to give opportunity to other people without
Yeah.
gatekeeping, without exploitation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With integrity. And being able
Yes.
to tie it to a hip hop nonprofit that's doing the work that's desperately needed in the culture,
Yeah.
right? Being able to do that and then providing artists with the tools they need to be successful in any respect. Maybe they don't want to be an artist after they drop their first album. Maybe they want to be more behind the scenes, but they're now being given exposure into the not only the pipeline but the workforce, the process.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
that they understand the process, maybe they see a different aspect of the industry that they may want to get more involved in. right?
Hmm.
That might be a little bit more sustainable than being an artist. I think at best, if I go viral today, I
Right.
probably arguably have 3 years before the hype of me starts to
Yeah.
die down. Before I'm
Right.
not getting booked as much, before my feature fees are a lot less. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
there's a good 2 to 3 years. What do you do after those 3 years? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the other day, I'm looking through Instagram and they had the double XL freshman covers, bunch of them.
Yeah. And you could
I
go
would say
through them and you could
60
be
to
like, yeah,
70.
they made it. They made it. Don't know what happened to the rest of them.
Exactly. 60% of that list you don't even know about anymore. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So obviously being a hip hop artist in today's climate may not be the most sustainable, but it gives you a foot in to a larger industry where if
Yeah.
you're smart enough, you can maintain it. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can be
For
an
sure.
A&R. You can be a journalist like yourself doing interviews and providing a platform for other emerging talent. These
Yeah.
are other fields that we have that are all still hip hop. It's all still the culture.
Yeah.
So, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So, as opposed to saying, yo, I want a job as a rapper, tell yourself, I want a job in hip hop culture. And
That's
when you
powerful.
broaden the perspective of that intent, you're now receptive to all these different vehicles that can give you a sustainable, cool lifestyle, be able to do cool and fly shit, and still be able to be creative.
That's powerful. Hip Hop for Change, you kind of gave us some background as to the different things it does. But if people, want to hire Hip Hop for Change to come to their school or their organization, or if there's, a young person that hears about this and wants to somehow participate in it, talk to us about how people could get involved, either, procuring or, just participating.
Yeah, I mean it's all hands on deck. Many hands making for light work, right? So first and foremost, we provide education in school. So we're doing pep rally style assemblies that teach the history of hip hop and give introduction and exposure to all the different elements of hip hop. So we're bringing in DJs, we're bringing in beat makers, we're bringing in graffiti artists and break dancers to have fun with the kids and really use our creativity to explore these different themes in terms of social justice, wellness, and all of that. So you have your assemblies, then we have our multi-week workshops where you can get workshops in all the different elements of hip hop, or maybe you just get a songwriting workshop for 5 weeks and you learn how to write a song, you learn how to do DIY recording. We have our actual brick and mortar facilities in Oakland and San Francisco where young
Wow.
people can come in on Wednesdays. If they're 24 and younger, they can record for free. They don't have to pay for anything.
Wow.
And not only are we allowing you to record for free, we're allowing you to record for free with an engineer who used to be a participant in our programs, is now the lead
Wow.
engineer at our. And we have artist mentors who can guide you through the recording process if you're young or you're nervous or whatever the case is. And then for local hip hop artists who are, out here doing their own thing, maybe they're putting together showcases, maybe they're doing community organizing, maybe they're at a boys and girls club and that's their day job. Now we can train you in our methodology and our approach to
Yep.
be an active mentor in the lives of kids and go into schools and facilitate programming. You know what I mean? So you
Wow.
could go to our website, www.hiphopforchange.org, see how you can get involved. We're looking for a grant writer right now because we need that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we always need interns, we need volunteers, people who are down for the cause. We need donors. So even if you're not a rapper, if you're not a teacher, if you just would love the feel goodness of
For
a
sure.
hip hop organization doing the right thing, donate to us. You know what I'm saying? Give us a
Yeah.
little $10, $20, maybe become a recurring donor, become part of our membership community where you get access to our courses and all of our things. So it's a full spectrum approach. You know what I'm saying? And shout out all of my educators. Lil MC is one of our educators. You mentioned her in
Yeah.
the
She's so
intro.
dope. Yeah.
She's
She's
our
so dope.
program coordinator, right? You know what I mean? All of our other ones, some of Man, Amani Jade, a lot of local artists that are native to Oakland are in our teaching staff. So shout out to
Yeah.
them for just helping me facilitate this really great program that we have.
Wow. Wow. Blown away, my bro. Like I've heard about, hip hop for change, like on the periphery, just being in
Yeah.
hip hop, just being in hip hop. But getting kind of like the deep dive from you right now, completely blown away. I didn't realize that it went from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. Um, have you guys done anything just to kind of close the loop on it? Have you gone in the universities? Have you done anything with them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've done several lectures at UC Berkeley for years. I've done lectures at Harvard University. I recently just did a lecture at Columbia University, talking about, understanding yourself through hip hop and knowledge of self and all of these different things and different conversations all throughout. So we've done things in the university level, conferences, different events. We've curated events. Some of our other staff have done workshops at universities. And we also work with transitional age youth. So 18 to 24, if they're not already coming to our studio, then maybe they're a participant in our Pipeline to Positivity program. Maybe, we got them an internship or something to that effect. So there's all these different aspects of what we do, but it's all still within the realm of hip hop and within the realm of education. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Powerful, powerful. I wanted to ask you, as people start to go deep into your discography, they're gonna come across beat tapes. They're gonna come across your production, and you got
Yes.
bangers, right? You know how you were talking about the Just Blaze era, early Kanye. Like you've got really incredible production
Thank you.
on Midnight Crisis. Did you do any other production, or is it other producers?
So it's interesting. So I think I've been producing less in my albums as the years have gone by. So in 2022, was it, or 2021, I dropped the album Crowns.
Yeah.
And that was majority produced by me. I think I produced maybe 80% of that album.
Wow.
The albums before that, I produced 100% of the album. So
Wow.
it helped me develop a skill set in terms of
Hmm.
not just making beats, but producing a song, crafting a
Yeah.
record, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just
Yeah.
beats and
Making a
rhymes.
record, right? Not a
Crafting an
beat, a record.
experience that people are going to have that you appreciate and people like yourself learn to appreciate, and that's intentional. And then when I got to like the God that sins, I wanted to step away from music production. I wanted to find producers who have a similar sound to how I make beats, but may do it a little bit better. Maybe they know how to layer that 808 better than I can. Maybe they
Right.
have better drum kits. And I started leaning into that and just taking more of you're the beat maker, I'm the producer and the lyricist. So now I'm producing at a more macro level instead of just hitting the beats
Yeah.
around. So for Midnight Crisis, I think I produced one record, the Prophet and Kings beat. For that record, that's the one record that I produced. All the other
Wow.
production came from Track Pros, who was heavy on the last album, God That Sins. They're based out of Philadelphia. Swisher Beats, who I think, in my opinion, is like the all-star producer on this particular album. He's
Yeah.
from Austin, Texas. Nicanor, who's very unique in this. He did Soliloquy. He did Civil World War III. He's in
Wow.
Ukraine. I wasn't even able to
Wow.
speak to him throughout the course of this because he would run out of electricity because they were bombing nearby, right? Which is almost kind of
The
coincidental
name of the song. The
considering,
name of the song.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So we have foreign producers on this album. Buckroll, I think, lives in Germany, right? And is produced for like 38 Special. He's produced for Conway the Machine.
Yeah.
He has a lot of
Yeah.
credits to his, but he's in another country. So this
Yeah.
is international. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? One of the featured artists, Mountain Amadou, he's the singer on the very first record. He's from Ghana, right?
Wow.
Coincidentally, he's my brother-in-law, but he lives in Ghana.
That's dope.
So there's a very international feel on this album, and I wanted to reflect that, and I couldn't be selfish and just say I want to make all the beats, right? Because then
Yeah.
you wouldn't hear it the same if it was just me making all the beats. But if I can leverage somebody's beat making prowess and
Yeah.
run it through the filter of my production ability
Yup.
and my lyricism, it makes for a bigger song. It makes for something
Yeah.
that I think is a lot more meaningful and impactful. So that's
Yeah.
part of the reason I've chosen to like stay away from production and really just work on large scale executive producing or
Yeah.
A&Ring and allowing the beat makers who are super talented, because that's what they do, let them shine and let me shine as a lyricist.
That's dope. Yeah, Europe right now is holding it down. It's kind of like it's like
Yeah.
basketball. You know how basketball, the United States used to stomp everybody, but then
Right, right,
but
right.
now the Europeans, the Croatians could play, and you know what I'm saying, like Serbia could play, right? They
Yeah.
got beats, they got hip hop in Europe that is some of the best hip hop out.
They've democratized the process. So now, it's a lot easier to make beats now than at any other point in hip hop history. So that's number
Yeah,
one. But number two, what I particularly love about Europe in terms of like their response to hip hop is that for them it's still it still has a revolutionary aspect to it. It's still
Yeah.
counterculture. They're not using hip hop to sell McDonald's hamburgers out there
Right.
yet, or to
Right.
try to secure brand deals, or to sit on couches with bottle service and all of that. That's not what they're doing. They're using hip hop to speak for the underdog, to speak for the
Yeah.
downtrodden, how I grew up with the culture, how I'm so
Yeah.
assuming you grew up with the culture. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's still prevalent over there. So when I go over there, when I'm on tour or my music is being carried there, or when I'm collaborating with producers from there, we're maintaining that spirit, that energy that made the world fall in love with hip hop. And
Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
often lose sight of, I think, in like our new landscape is everything's viral and it got to be a moment and everybody has to have an opinion, as opposed to like, how about everybody have a feeling and not so much of an opinion?
That's
Right?
powerful.
Let's give people music and product that makes them feel something and connect to a human experience, as opposed to just finding something to have an opinion on so that we can occupy a news cycle so that we can monetize. Like that's what we've
Yeah.
become in the States, where I think in Europe and even in Africa and other places around the world, hip hop is still used and
Yeah.
heralded and revered as a revolutionary force. So let's
Yes.
go back to that. Let's go back to that energy. Let's keep that energy alive. You feel me?
Wow. That's dope. That's a really interesting perspective and an insight as to why hip hop is thriving in Europe. Really like a lot on the production side. I think sometimes when you'll hear somebody rapping in another language, as Americans, it's got to be real sticky for us to really get into it,
For
but
sure.
with the production, they're killing it, and with the merchandise, right? Like
Yeah.
Copenhagen Crates and companies like this that are, in a lot of ways providing us with vinyl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
so
vinyl's
it's
a big
like
deal out there. I'm just This will probably be the first album that I actually get on vinyl at some point. So look out for
that's
that. But
dope.
you
That's
know what I'm
dope.
saying? Like that we're going back to analog to one degree or another. Whether it's vinyl sales, which are through the roof now, if you look at like
Yep.
any recent reports, but CDs are coming back in a big
Yeah.
way. Beat makers make tapes now
Yeah.
still, right? Because
Yeah.
streaming has kind of just undermined the value of music. And I think
Yeah.
that real music fans, like I'm looking at your background, I see all forms of media back there, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
got CDs in the tuck and vinyl,
Oh,
and
I got
but
the crazy
I
vinyl
think for the
collection, crazy
music,
physical media,
yeah,
crazy physical
the
media.
music connoisseurs such as yourself, they want the experience of buying a
Yeah.
physical product and playing it and going through the mindset of the artist. It became a ritual for us. When
Yeah,
I
for
was buying
sure.
albums on Tuesdays or Fridays, whenever that was as a kid or even as a young adult, it was a ritual to open up the packaging and to look through the liner notes and to know who produced what. And that was a whole part of the experience of listening to the album. It wasn't just like,
Yeah.
yo, let me throw track number 3 and 14 on a playlist, forget about the
Right.
rest of the album, and then hop on Twitter or hop on Threads or hop on Instagram about how the album was mid. That's what we've become now. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, let me just
That's
get my
right.
favorite songs and then hop on this phone of mine to talk about how I didn't like the album or I love the album, whatever the case is. Or let me see what other people are thinking about the album so I can form my opinion. Like, we need to have more respect for the artist in the way that we approach the content. They've spent years, months, weeks, however long developing this music and this product for us. Let's really take our time to unpack it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I know I created a very dense album, so people will be listening to this maybe another 3 months before it begins to really sink in and make sense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Live with it. This is a product that I
Yes.
put out for people to live with it so that they can keep coming back to it. You know what I'm
That's
saying? This
powerful.
wasn't just for you to like one song and then put it on your record and never go back to it again. This was meant for a comprehensive experience because that's the amount of care I put into it. So that's
That's
what
dope.
I'm looking for in return.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I wanted to ask you a question, that is kind of like bubbling in my mind as
Yeah.
we're talking. Um, you came from New York, you moved to the West Coast, you came from Washington Heights, came to
Yeah.
the Bay, San Francisco, Oakland, right? There's an icon in hip hop that has a similar trajectory, right? Tupac Shakur, that came from Harlem to Oakland.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about your journey and what your experience of, coming from the mecca of hip hop, New York City, to kind of like the other mecca, right? With the
Yeah.
the
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 Bay
innovate
Area
the
has done so
innovators
much.
and the
Yeah.
creators of, on the West Coast.
Yeah. The Bay Area has done a lot to fix itself in the world of culture in general.
Yeah.
I would concur to one degree or another that it doesn't get its just desserts when it comes to hip hop and the world of hip hop. I think it's
Yeah.
still kind of underrepresented. And there's a lot of reasons for that that would take a whole nother episode to get into. But
Right.
from my experience, I come from New York. First time I land in the Bay Area is 2003. It's the very first time I'm in the Bay Area. And from there, I'm exposed to this is a kid from New York who come from the battle rap scene, come from the mixtape scene, was in the music industry, got chewed up, spit out, needed to change the scenery. So now I'm in a whole different coast. And I have to kind of assimilate. I have to like lose my New York attitude. It was almost ego death. I had to
Yeah.
lose
Yeah.
part of my New York attitude to kind of fit into this world that was a lot more laid back, a lot more easygoing, to one degree or another, a lot more socially conscious,
Yeah.
spiritually in tune. So like for me, I'm learning about this, and I'm learning about the hip hop. The hip hop is more storytelling driven.
Right.
It's more introspective. There's just different sonics and vibes and whatever the case is. So I did a lot of
Different
learning early
slang. The
on.
Bay's got its own slang. Everything. Right. They got their own
Everything, you know what I'm
everything.
saying? So like I
Hmm.
wasn't out here just trying to get down and be hyphy and do all of that. I wanted to be who I was, coming
Yeah.
from New York and having this wealth of experience and knowledge of just about the culture. But I also found that people had they knew their stuff out here, right?
Yeah.
They were still doing ciphers. They were still breaking down the five elements. They were still doing graffiti. Like I'm mixed in with all of these people who are still living and breathing the culture. They don't care whether they get rich. They don't care if they're on the radio. At the same time, you have the people who do care, right? And you have the
Hmm.
people who really care but pretend they don't, and then it gets weird. But nonetheless, I learned from all of these different pockets of community and different experiences, and it all informed the way that I approach things. So I would go as far as to say I'm just as much a West Coast artist lyrically as I am an East Coast artist sonically. You know
That's
what I'm saying? If
powerful.
you listen to what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, you'll hear echoes of a Nipsey Hussle. You'll hear echoes of some of these more underground artists in the Bay Area. But then it's very New York.
Yeah.
You hear it in my accent. You hear it in the beat selection. It's very like, you know what I mean. If I'm
Yeah.
talking about Timberland boots, you know where I'm from and you know
Right.
what I'm representing. But at the same time, I got to rep for the Bay, and I got to show you like there's an alternative to the hyphy sound that everybody knows the Bay for. And there's so many other artists that are doing groundbreaking work that just is sonically different that I think people should check out.
Wow, that's a really interesting. Like how I mentioned earlier, the layers of your life
Yeah.
are really unique. They're really unique, and it's fascinating and interesting. I wanted to ask you another question related to um kind of just where we are uh as a society at this moment in time,
Mm.
where in the Bay, in addition to what we were talking about with its impact on hip hop, it's had a tremendous impact on the whole world with technological advancements.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
through music, whether it's the digital streaming platforms or social media or the creation of video pieces to use in your own music video, as artists you have to use the tools around you to make better content, make better
For sure.
music. We find ourselves in a moment right now that's kind of like a pivotal moment where 2 or 3 years from now it'll probably be pretty different in regards to the advancements in specifically AI, but how it's
Very much so.
impacting music, how it's impacting um from intelligence, right? We have
Yeah.
access to intelligence now the same way we have access to water or the internet. Now we
Yeah.
could just we have things that can help us think.
Information
Um,
on tap.
Information on tap, that's a great way to put it. And you're
Yeah.
kind of being in the Bay. Not only are you like in a cultural hub, but you're in the hub of where this is
Tech
actually
innovation
happening
for
in the
sure.
world.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, as a person that is spiritual, is conscious, is socially aware, and is also has a voice and a platform, and is dope with the pen, and can get on stages. All of this kind of puts you at a moment in history, right, where this change is happening, and this a lot of this may be captured on the next album. You know what I'm saying? But we're in that moment right now, which is like before really like AI agents are prevalent, and
Yeah.
before we're at anything like a super intelligence where it's still kind of like in the box and not scary.
Yeah.
But so a lot of people feel, like it's the most amazing thing in the world. It's sentient, and then a lot of people are like, I'm staying away from that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's like,
Yeah.
and I want to get your take on it as a person who's a deep thinker and that people listen to.
Yeah.
What's your take right now? Because this is just a snapshot in time, right? It's
Yeah.
evolving, but right now, March 2026. Where does Unlearn kind of, what do you feel, how are you using it, what are your insights?
Yeah. So there's a beloved Islamic scholar that I've listened to and watched since I was a child called Hamza Yusuf. May God bless him and have mercy on him. Right? He said once, and I think I used the line in a different song. He said once, the thing with technology is that it's a double-edged sword, but at the same time, there's no handle. You know what I'm saying? So you're gonna
Wow.
get cut either way if there's no handle on the double-edged sword. There's
Wow.
just as much benefit to the internet and to the advent of technology as there is harm. It almost
Yeah.
evens itself out. And I think a lot of your experience is filtered through you. If you are an evil person, you're going to use the technology for evil means. And we see
Yeah.
that to one degree or another. And I don't want to make the judgment as to whether or not somebody is evil or nothing, but you judge the tree by its fruits. And when you see
Yeah.
technology being used to exploit people, whether it's, insignificant micro charges on a credit card transaction,
Yeah.
or AI kicking out false information or giving you a
Yeah.
deep fake or whatever the case is, that's somebody with wicked intent looking to
Yeah.
deceive people, utilizing technology. Hip hop has always used technology, right?
Yeah.
In fact, technology almost acquiesced itself in order for hip hop to use it. We
Yeah.
created a different style of DJing that then by the 1980s, beat machines, people who were making beat machines were like, all right, we're going to add samplers and drum machines to
Yeah.
replicate what people are doing in hip hop, right?
Yeah.
The internet and internet culture is very much driven by what people are doing in the culture of hip hop.
Yes.
So we've always had a symbiotic relationship with technology. We've always had a symbiotic relationship with the internet, and now you have these worlds kind of converging. And I think
Yeah.
that with that comes great power and great responsibility, like Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah.
And I think all too often we're using it, and we haven't really wrapped our head around what we can use it for to push us forward. Everything
Interesting.
now is like, yo, let's use technology, specifically AI, to deceive less intelligent people, exploit them, and extract their resources to enrich ourselves. That's ultimately what people are doing, right?
Yeah.
Creating deep fakes of things on the internet that then boost engagement. Now you can monetize, and now people are running around with a false narrative about a political issue or a social issue because you just decided to put something out there to make money. That's the
Yeah.
danger. The danger is, oh, I'm not really a songwriter. I never really used an instrument. I never really wrote a song, but now I can create a whole artist persona on my laptop and monetize this person and get them $1 million record deal because record labels don't want to pay actual people to do the work. That's a
Yeah.
danger, right?
Yeah.
And whether people see it as a danger or not is really based on them and whether or not it infringes on their ego and their identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're a producer who's already using Suno and people are coming to you saying, yo, Suno's whack, you're going to try to convince people that Suno's not because you get in a bag from them. And let's not like act like it's from this altruistic point of I just love technology. It's like, nah, they're making people brand ambassadors to put out propaganda, right? All the
That's
while
powerful.
extracting and stealing from artists. And that
Yeah.
inequity is where the wickedness is. And that inequity is where the problems lie. You know what I mean? It's stealing from artists, not compensating for their work, and then
Yeah.
turning back around and trying to sell the culture back to us. Right? AI has just made it easier for what white supremacy and the record labels have already been doing to us for decades. That's a
Powerful.
problem, right? At the same time, AI can help us take our culture back. by helping us build infrastructure, by helping us build processes and systems within our own brands as artists, within our own brands as nonprofits or different organizations. If you don't have a 20-man team, you can go on the internet and you can go on any of these chat bots and create a whole business for yourself. That
Yeah.
is an amazing benefit. You know what I'm saying? That's information that you wouldn't have had 20 years ago. You would have had to have gone to do a summer internship and spend a whole afternoon in a library trying to figure out half the things you can find out in 5 minutes on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So I use it in terms of that. Like I need budgeting, I need projections. Okay, use the tool. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When it comes to writing raps and kicking freestyles and making beats, I'm gonna use me and my 40 plus years of experience on God's green earth to
Yeah.
determine how I express myself. I'm never gonna use a
Powerful.
computer for that. Now, if you do, maybe you grew up with a laptop in your hand or a phone in your hand. Maybe you're younger than me and that's how you engage with the world. But
Right.
I think that there's a unique opportunity, and I don't mean to be so long-winded, but you struck a nerve with me with this question. So right on for you. You know what I mean? So, but if you did grow up with a cell phone in your hand and you don't know how to interact with people on a social level, that is our responsibility as the 30 plus people and the 40 plus people to at least introduce to you some level of analog experience that allows you to regain some of your humanity, right? It allows
Powerful.
you to go back to something that we've lacked over the last 25 years since the dawn of this new century. You know what I mean? Like as a turn of the century kid where you was outside and you knew what it was like to have street lights go on and play, and as somebody who has that experience, as somebody who's seen the evolution of the internet, I now have a wealth of experience that I can pass on to the next generation and make them realize why it's important. I think history
Powerful.
is one of the most important gifts in human evolution. And
Yeah.
those who are cut off from history are those who are exploited. It's a crime. It's a crime against humanity to cut people off from their history, whether it's history prior to slavery as black people coming to the Western Hemisphere,
Yeah.
or if it's just the history of black music in America,
Yes.
right? If we're cut off from this lineage, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And if you are any sort of artist, I would imagine and I would recommend strongly that you do your history lesson before you go
Powerful.
and try to innovate and create something new using technology.
Powerful.
Look at the way that the road was paved for you and stand on the shoulders of giants before you deem yourself to be tall because you're on ChatGPT creating verses.
That's dope. That's dope. Unlearn the world, my brother. We're gonna have to run it back in the future because there's so
Yeah.
much knowledge there. It's been an honor building with you. Midnight
Likewise,
Crisis
bro.
currently available on all digital streaming platforms. It's an incredible album. I said it here.
Mhm.
The album of the year potential. It really
Thank
is
you.
early. It was released about a month ago in February,
Yep.
and here we are in March. There's still a lot of 2026 left, but this album is tremendous. Congratulations on a masterpiece, and it's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure and an honor to build with you, my bro.
Likewise, bro. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me. Shout out to all your listeners and your fans and the people who you watch, who rock with you. And much success to you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, my brother. Build with you again. Build with you soon.
Indeed.
Salute.
Peace.